Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guest today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. In today's episode, we're talking about being bored. Yes, that's right, being bored. This will definitely not be a boring episode. Let me just put that little asterisk on it. But this is a really cool topic I'm excited to dive into with our very special guest, James Walters. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Brandon, thank you for having me. I'm excited to have the conversation with you.
So on the surface, talking about being bored could be considered a boring episode, but I think this is a very unique spin on boredom. So tell me, why do you love being bored so much, James?
I love being bored in certain areas of my life. And I've noticed that just in society now, boredom is kind of the thing to avoid. And we've gotten away from certain parts of our lives being boring and just being okay with that or being used to it. But I've always been in a creative space, creative business. Now I help other people just unlock or tap into a little bit more creativity. And what I've found over the years is if I can be really intentional about certain parts of my life and intentionally make those parts boring, then that opens up a lot of bandwidth for me to focus on the creativity and the parts I want to really double down in my life. So it's really a two-part thing. Decide what I want to be boring about or with in order to open up a lot more space and energy for me to create, which is what I want to be doing.
Yeah, so it's not just being bored, it's strategic boredom.
It is,
Which
absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I love that concept and I want to dive into it more, but I'm really curious before we get into what does that look like, how do you avoid not being bored? And I'm saying that because where I'm sitting right now, I have a computer in front of me with access to the internet. I have a phone right there with access to the internet, and I'm always surrounded by these devices. It is impossible to not be bored. So how do you avoid that stuff first and foremost?
It's kind of like exercise, and I don't love physical exercise, but I've gotten to a point in my life where I know it's necessary, and so I have to force myself to do it. I've also started coupling that with leaving the device off of me. So in the last probably 6 months, I've been very intentional about going on walks in nature with no headphones or anything where I could listen to a podcast or try to, as they say, what do they call it, multitask. I have really tried to avoid anything related to multitasking. If I'm doing a task and I start to get bored, I'm just like everyone else. I want to grab my phone and see, hey, anyone texted me, or I've got it right on my screen. I could see it, the little red dot comes up on the app. And I've started shutting those down, just intentionally making it so that if I do get bored, I really settle back into the thing. And then I have to ask myself, okay, am I bored to the level where I just need to get up, walk around, maybe get another glass of water? Or am I bored to where I just don't need to be doing this task anymore? I've been there, done that. And there have been a lot of things I've crossed off and figured out how to pass off to an assistant or VA, just because every time I do it, I find myself getting bored. Now, there are some things that bore me, like accounting and things that only I know that how to, let's say my bookkeeper calls me up and say, hey, how do I account for this? Was this a job related expense, or was it, what was that? And only I know that information. And so even though that bores me, it's important. And so I do it. But there are a lot of things day to day that bore me that I realized over the years, I can pass this off. And there are some things that bore me that I realized, if I get just a little bit more creative with this, this thing is going, I could take this in a whole new direction and it could be exciting. So it's just balancing all of those things. But I'm very distractible. I see squirrels everywhere. And it forced me to really look at myself and start taking a lot of apps off of my phone and shutting down a lot of things when I am trying to do focused work, especially creative work, because when you're doing creative things, you're solving problems. That's all creativity is solving problems that you personally haven't solved for yourself before. It doesn't mean you're reinventing the wheel for the humanity. It just means you're doing things that you haven't put together. And so that takes a lot of energy. And I want to have that as much of it as possible without being distracted.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And it is so hard to be, I shouldn't say that, but it is a challenge to be creative, especially when there's all of these distractions around us. Even when you get rid of all of that stuff, there's a bookshelf. So there's another, going back to the old fashioned days where we can pick up a physical book. I mean, there's always something you can be distracted with if you choose. So you have to find for yourself what is that zone you can get in to where all of those distractions don't matter. I know what it is for me. I'm sure you know what it is for you, but it's going to be unique for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious though, for yourself. I mean, what are some of the things where you are strategically boring in your life to eliminate that as a distraction? Maybe that'll inspire something in our listeners to discover what that is for them.
Right. I want to go back to what you said and really emphasize that strategic boredom is completely different for everyone. So for me, I have a lot of boredom in my wardrobe. My wardrobe's pretty much black and gray. I have blue jeans. Those could be considered blue, but they match with everything I have. I have about 12 t-shirts that I had made. They represent my style, my brand, whatever you want to call it. I throw a jacket over it every day. I can go most places, summer, fall, and winter in that. If I need to dress up really fancy, I've got about 3 different shirts, pant combinations. I can pull any of them out. They all work together. A lot of people call that a capsule wardrobe, but that works for me because I can throw any of it on, feel comfortable in most of the places where I go. If I'm speaking, if I'm, talking with a group of people, I can feel comfortable and blend in pretty well in that. Now, some people are really into fashion, and being boring in that way is not going to work for them. They like to match colors and they like to match, whatever it is they're doing. So they'll maybe need to look at another area. Another area that I'm pretty boring is my food. As long as I'm getting the nutrition that I like it when it tastes good, but I've gotten to the point where I can eat pretty much the same thing every day and be okay with it. I love variety, and usually I get variety if someone says, "Hey, let's go out to lunch." And but here's the thing: have you ever been with someone maybe in a work situation and you're like, "Hey, let's go grab some lunch," and they say, "Yeah, that would be great." And you say, "What are you in the mood for?" And they say, "I'm up for whatever." And you say, "Okay, let's go grab some Mexican. There's a place I've been wanting to try." And they're like, "Oh, wait, I had Mexican like 2 days ago. So can we have anything else?" And I'm thinking to myself, well, you just said you were up for anything. And do you know who has Mexican food pretty much every day? People who live in Mexico. I'm like, so obviously what I'm hearing from the other person is they have this need or pull for variety in their diet. And, I live in America and I would gladly eat Mexican food every day. I would be the same way with Italian food. It's just, I like food, but it doesn't have to be that wild variety for me. And really it's a mental shift. And so if you can get good and comfortable with staying consistent in something, like some people are foodies and that is not going to work for them. They want to try something a little bit different, not only throughout the day, but throughout the seasons, whatever's fresh and available. So that's cool. That's not the area where they want to be boring, but that works for me.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to that. And it's really interesting too, because same thing. If you watch this podcast, you've never seen me not in a t-shirt. Yeah. I have like 8 different colors of the same exact t-shirt. I just rotate them through. That's how I live my life.
Yeah.
And food is the same way. I've gotten to the point where, and this is extreme, I'm not advocating this, but I have one meal a day during the week. It is
Yeah.
the same meal Monday through Friday,
Yeah.
and I'm perfectly happy. I dabble on the line of foodie though. So on the weekends, that's where I splurge. I explore. I make a creative dish for my wife and kids, and we have fun with food then. But what I've calculated is the cost during the week of, and what we're talking about is decision fatigue. The
Right.
cost of the decision of what to eat, what to wear, what to do with my time is far too high that it costs me hours of productivity both before and after the meal. So that's why I'm like, well, I'm just going to do it once a day and I'm going to
Yeah.
have the same thing. So I don't have to think about it. So is that really what we're getting at here, is the concept of decision fatigue?
It is. And it is just shifting your energy into things that have to be done. You have to eat, and you usually have to wear clothes unless you're not leaving the house. But in my case, those decisions are handled. And so I don't need to put energy into them. It's not even really a thought. It's just a go, and it's available. And to what you said on the weekends about food, sometimes I'll spend the weekend planning. And of course, you've got to shop for food if you're going to make it at your house. So that's where I might get a little bit creative and do some meal prep, and then get that meal prep done. And it's handled for the rest of the week. It's just there. And right now I'm at a writer's residency. I'm about an hour and a half away from my house, so I'm not going back and forth. I'm staying here for the whole week, but I prepped containers of food that if I get hungry, I'm just going to go, I know what I'm going to eat, and then I can go back to writing as soon as I'm finished. So it's not what restaurant should I go, or what should I go pick up at the store? It's I'm hungry, go to the refrigerator, goes to microwave, goes to my mouth, and then goes back to writing.
I love it. So what does this look like for entrepreneurs? If we want to be a little bit more strategic with our boredom, if we want to come up with creative ideas for our business, I'm so convinced that you cannot come up with good creative solutions if your mind is bogged down with something else. It could be the mundane decisions of what you're going to eat. It could also be, how am I going to make payroll this week? So making that time and space for strategic boredom, what are some of the outcomes you've experienced, either personally with clients or with people you've helped over the years?
Yeah, I had this experience just this year, and it fascinated me. And this goes back a little bit more to some productivity hacks, but it also helped my creativity a lot. I went on for the very first time. This is going to sound way off topic, but it comes back. But I went on a cruise for the first time this June, and I had no desire. I don't like cruise things. I don't do the pool. The island seemed cool that it was going to, but I didn't even get off the boat because I did some research and it was like, yeah, it's tourist trap. Don't do it. But the reason I went is because I sat in my room and I sat in the lounge and I worked on my book and I worked on some photography related things, some year planning stuff, because all of my meals were handled. All I had to do was sit down. They brought it to me. All of my activities were pretty much handled. I was going to work really hard for about 10 hours a day, and then I would go hit the piano bar, and that would be my 30 minutes of happiness, or whatever you want to call it, that day. But for the rest of that time, I was super focused because everything else going on around me just didn't interest me. And that, although a lot was going on around me, and it was really fascinating. So going back to your question about how can entrepreneurs do this, people with teams, I think getting out of your normal environment is a really big thing, because when you're in your normal environment, if that's your house, there are a lot of things pulling at your attention. And I'm always really top of mind about what I call the dilution of our energy or our attention. And really, attention is just energy, and you have to manage it. So if you can bring people together in person, I think that's super important too, because then you're really focused on someone. You're not looking at a screen where maybe someone comes in the room and you're kind of got half of your attention on, okay, what's going on there? Or maybe you start seeing those notifications come up on your screen. So it really does come down to changing your environment. And sometimes that environment is just your desktop. For me, that helps a lot. But sometimes your environment is to go someplace completely different where you can't be in your normal routine. And then you have to figure out, okay, what do I do now? And it helps if that environment doesn't interest you very much.
That's a good tip. Although I think a conspiracy theory popped in my head as you were describing that. We shouldn't go down this rabbit hole, but maybe
Okay.
someone else is thinking about it. You know how they always say, the elites, if you will say in the future, people will own nothing and be happy. I'm thinking, oh no, they're going to put everybody on a cruise ship or in an apartment complex where there's entertainment, endless food, and you go and you live your life like that. And I'm scared, James. I'm a little scared.
It sounds like, what you just described, it sounds like that movie Wall-E, where they had to take a spaceship away from Earth because it was so filled with garbage. And there was everything you could ever want. And the people, because of space weightlessness and endless buffets, they couldn't even stand up. They were in these chairs that they glided around. That sounds exactly, oh gosh, that's the future. But
they're putting it in front of our face. I'm terrified.
What I think though is when it comes to creativity, I think the currency of creativity is going to be elevated in the next several years, because with all of this AI, I've been a photographer for the last 30 some years. And when I started my career, it went from film to digital. Now photography is going from digital to AI, with a person behind the camera or not, you can create an image. And AI is good at iterating and generating things, but there has to be creativity behind it. There has to be ideas, things people haven't seen before, because you can have AI all day long, but you still have to come back and connect with humans to move the needle in your revenue or whatever it is. AI doesn't buy things as far as I know yet, right? So you still have to connect with people to drive businesses, and creativity has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, I think as AI becomes more and more prevalent, and I mean, full disclosure, if you visit our website and download our app, we have an AI component that's there to assist you, but it can't replace you. And that's the whole point, is you have to, creativity comes from humans. You have to have emotions. Humans can't connect with robots, never will. And other way around, robots can never understand human emotions. They can model it, but it's not understanding, and it's not actually being in those emotions. So I love everything you're saying. And we have a desperate need for creativity in the world today. And you just go on social media for 5 minutes, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. There is no creativity. Everybody's just copying one another. So I think this is an important conversation, James. Thank you for opening this discussion.
Yeah, Brandon, thanks for having me. I always love to talk about creativity and the ways to get more of it into our lives. So thank you for having me.
I love it. Where can the listeners go and learn more about you? I know you put out a ton of content.
Yeah, I do a podcast. It's called A Joyful Rebellion, and ajoyfulrebellion.com is the place to connect. And every week I talk with people. So A Joyful Rebellion is about that time, just really quick, where people have done all the things, they've checked all the boxes that they were told would help them feel successful or be successful in their lives, get the degree, get the job, get the house, get the family, all this stuff. And then they look around and they feel a little emptiness. And there are different stages and sometimes multiple stages of life that people have that experience. So I want to talk to people who have been through it and also help other people get through it. And so that's what I do every week. And I talk to a lot of really cool, creative people at thejoyfulrebellion.com.
That's awesome. It's on the screen. It's in the show notes down below. I encourage you to go listen to it. James, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Brandon.
And wherever you're watching or listening, we appreciate you being here. Make sure you subscribe and come back on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Harmonious at Lunch podcast. Make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're on, and we want to invite you to join us in the Small Business Success Facebook group, our private group where guests and listeners come together to grow your business. We want impact-driven entrepreneurs who are ready to go to the next level in this group so we can all share ideas, collaborate, and grow our businesses together. Go to whatif.com/group, and we want to invite you to join today. See you on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch.